It's a world between worlds that has our minds pretty much blown, fried.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. We're talking about Star Wars Rebels here on Beyond the Blast Doors. I'm one of your hosts, David. This is Jesse. We just got done reviewing the previous episode, episode number 12, but here we are. We're talking about a world between worlds, one of the most incredible episodes of Star Wars Rebels, but really one of the most incredible 21 minutes, however long it is, of Star Wars lore.
I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about this one because we get some stuff.
You know, I feel kind of biased because in the last review we did, we listed a couple of pros, like all these things that we liked, we thought they were so great. We didn't list one con. There really wasn't, unless you just don't like how a mural can come to life, or you don't like how you can hear the voices of the past with the Lothal travel. Like, unless you don't like that attempt, you really don't have a con.
Yeah, there really wasn't anything like wrong with it. Like, I would give it a solid 12 out of 10.
Yeah, and I think the same can be applied for this episode. So if you can buy into it, if you can allow yourself as a Star Wars fan to accept what transpires, you absolutely love this episode. It is a 12 out of 10, like Jesse said, and you're smiling and you're giddy for the series finale next Monday. But if you can't accept it, then you're probably miserable and you're kicking the floor just as hard as you were after The Last Jedi, because I'm pretty sure the people complaining about The Last Jedi will complain about this episode. And if they're not, then maybe they're hypocrites. I don't know. We'll find out.
We'll see.
But let's just go ahead and jump into this episode, because episode 12 ends with Ezra going through the portal. Mm-hmm. And episode 13, boom, Ezra comes out of the portal. And it is this void. Not space. Ezra can breathe. He can function in it. It's this place.
Yeah.
Seems very empty, almost like a vacuum. Black. Stars up in the sky. These white, kind of transparent paths kind of leading all over. Really fascinating stuff. And it's very echoey. It kind of reminds me, I don't know, it instantly reminded me of the Mortis stuff. Like, it felt of that world, you know? When you see this episode open up, what are your first thoughts of that space? What are you thinking that we just watched Ezra walk through stone?
Well, this is the thing. So we know that it's not just like a dream thing because, well, for one, we watched him walk through and we watched two stormtroopers try to follow him through it miserably.
It fell. It fell back.
So we know that he's actually in this place, that this is a real place somehow. So it's like, where is this? Did he teleport somewhere? Like, is he inside the temple? Mm-hmm. You know, so, I mean, it raises a lot of questions there. But immediately, you know, he's kind of like in here, he's looking around, and he's stumbling around. And what do we get more of? More voices.
Yes. They're calling this the plane of existence, which I think is interesting. And we're hearing these familiar voices of past, semi-present, and future.
Yeah, and then we're talking a lot of different voices. You're hearing Princess Leia and the hologram message to Obi-Wan in A New Hope. Mm-hmm. You hear Kylo Ren. You hear Obi-Wan. You hear Yoda. You hear Kanan.
You hear Jyn Erso at one point.
Yeah, you know, so it's really a nice tie-in because it's referencing just about everything.
There is. And before we go real into that, and by the way, just so you know, while you're watching, you can actually pull up what we think is a complete list of the quotes that we hear right now at beyondtheblastdoors.com. We've compiled that. There's a lot of people trying to compile a list like this. So if you notice that we've missed anything, or maybe we got a quote wrong, let us know. You can tweet us. You can also find us on Facebook at the bottom of the article. But beyondtheblastdoors.com, it's our most recent blog post. While Ezra is kind of getting his bearings of this plane of existence, you have Sabine back with the minister.
Yeah. And
talking about how the temple's been accessed before by the rebels. And what I thought was interesting here is a conversation where he's like, the Emperor knows Ezra Bridger is in there. I've told him. And your friend is not safe. I love the direct to the point with this meeting.
Well, it's kind of unnerving because, you know, this guy, I mean, this minister, he comes off, he's being kind of pleasant. Like, he's being like authoritative, but it's almost like, I don't know, like, I think about like a British like general like that you'd see like in the Revolutionary War. Like, they're very proper and everything. At one point, you know, he's like pouring tea
It's like a gentleman's approach.
Yeah, and but then he reveals this information that the Emperor knows that he's in there. He's impressed with it, but then he's like, "Your friend's in danger, so I need you to tell me how he got in there." So he's trying to manipulate and everything, and maybe in some level he's speaking a truth and he's being honest about the danger that Ezra's in. But I mean, at the same time, he's trying to aid the Emperor too.
I just, like I said in the last review, I love this character, and I love that sense of that sinister style that you mentioned there. He is sly, and he is right. Ezra is in trouble. We jump back into the plane of existence, that black void, and Ezra sees a very familiar creature, the Convor.
Well, if anything, he hears a hoot.
He does hear the hoots, right?
Yeah.
And my brain at that point, tell me if I'm wrong to feel this way, the moment I see the Convor there, I'm thinking that's Ahsoka. We're about to hear Ahsoka's voice come from this bird.
Well, that's
incredible.
That's the current trend there. That's what we've been kind of led to believe, with the last time we saw anything referencing Ahsoka was this bird, and then Kanan dies, and now we have the wolf named Doom.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, at this point, I'm going, what's this?
There is this plan by Hera and Zeb and Chopper because they're trying to figure out how they're going to rescue Sabine and how they're going to get Ezra back. And so they realize that the stations that are set up on this excavation site are like mobile. They have like engines. And so they start coming up with this plan how they're going to activate one and they're going to flip it over. And you see it play out over the course of the episode. But I like the ingenuity there. And I like how you're able to keep everyone involved with this episode. Because it's very easy to make this episode just about Ezra in this Force environment. And it would be very easy to forget about Sabine and forget about the others and then just try and tie it up real quickly at the end. Not the case here. Did you have any thoughts about that plan they cultivate, or do you want to jump back into the plane of existence?
I just thought, I thought it was clever, and I have to agree with you. And it's good to see, even them bouncing back to Sabine, and then boom, you've got, Hera, Zeb, and Chopper here, and it's just like, oh, good, they didn't forget about them up on the cliffside here,
We start hearing voices in this plane of existence.
Yeah, a lot of voices at this point.
And Ezra's hearing moments of past, present, and future, like I mentioned before, and he's walking around until he comes across this one where it's Ahsoka battling Darth Vader. Am I upsetting you already?
Yeah.
No, are you? Oh no, I was thinking you'd be excited to talk about this part.
Oh, I am, because we're not sure what we're seeing.
It's you watch the episode, you have the bridge there, and you have these circular. Some are circular portways, some are angular, but it opens up and he can see Ahsoka battling Darth Vader back from season 2. When they're battling there at the Sith Temple, Malachor, and there's this moment where you see from that other perspective,
almost kind of like Ahsoka's perspective,
right,
but almost like in a third person way.
Force pushes him away. The door closes. They continue to fight, and then you see Vader over her, just continuing to put pressure. She's struggling, and then all of a sudden, Ezra's hand reaches into that scene, pulls her out, and this like flash happens, and you're like, what? What just happened? Like, did he just mess with the timeline? And so there's two thoughts that go through my mind. One, how? Two, do we now have this idea of like time jumping or time travel in Star Wars? And I was like, no. I got a bad feeling about this. Jesse, what did you think?
Well, so at this point, I'm like, okay, he's actually seeing, the past and everything. And I'm excited because we're kind of getting that moment, like what actually happened after, that Sith temple doors closed and everything. So we have this intense fight and everything. Ahsoka is losing this battle. We know that Darth Vader's a skilled, lightsaber, fighter and everything. He's overpowering her, and then at that kind of like that desperate moment to defeat him, like she thrust her lightsaber into the ground and everything. And then, yeah, like you said, Ezra just goes like, no, and he reaches through and then like pull. And at that moment, I kind of almost feel like there's maybe like a force explosion, that's
or just an explosion in general.
Yeah, because like we see the floor collapse, Vader falls through, and then it kind of blacks out.
So was originally Ahsoka sacrificing herself to kill off Vader?
I wonder if that's what was going on here, and because Ezra intervened, like obviously he survived. And at this point, we don't know what's exactly happened here. We just know that Ezra reached out and touched somebody from like last year.
So yeah, and so like the Ezra regains consciousness, and he's like, "What just happened?" He looks over. There's Ahsoka Tano laying on the bridgeway. Ahsoka is now alive.
Can I stop you for a minute?
Yeah,
she lives.
Oh my gosh, she does live. As
I want a
Dave's
shirt now.
as Dave's shirt at Celebration this past April mentioned, she does live. I want to go ahead and just say I was not about this at all initially, because I don't like the idea of time traveling entering Star Wars. That's a Doctor Who thing maybe. It's not a Star Wars thing. But then you have this idea that like the Force is fluid. And there's this time that exists that does connect and bind everything, like we hear Obi-Wan talk about in A New Hope, that scene on Tatooine. And then I started slowly buying into it, like that there is this core in which time and existence all kind of goes around. You know why that works? Because it is Star Wars. It's not like our world and our concept of time. Like, that's Star Wars. And it goes back to something we said in the last review. We are expanding, Dave Filoni and crew, are expanding how we perceive and understand the Force. And I think this is such a cool treat to see Ezra and to see Ahsoka handling this, fighting the good fight together. They start walking around and they find another portal. And that's when it gets dark.
Well, like you said, oh my gosh, you're alive. This is great and everything. And then Ezra is basically like, I could save Canon. Yeah, you're Kanan and everything. Like
save Canon.
I could save.
That's an argument for a different show.
I can save Kanan and everything, and he's really like he's not thinking clearly. Ahsoka seems to be kind of more on a level playing field, despite being pulled through time and some weird thing.
That was a little surprising to me. That was how calm she was.
That was a little bit off, but I mean, just maybe not. I wouldn't say it was out of character though, either though for her, because she's more
but
experienced.
If you were just there fighting Vader and then somehow you got propelled like years later, because that's like a year's at least jump. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but I get what you mean, because he's tempted. He's thinking, well, if I can save you, I can go save Kanan. And he starts listening to the voices, and he books it.
Yeah.
And he books it, and they find the gateway. We'll call it a gateway or portal, where they see Kanan holding back the explosion. And you see Ezra and Hera back in the ship.
Yeah, he's 100% ready. He's like, I can reach him. And Ahsoka stops him.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you do this, you die.
Yeah.
And I think it's at that moment that, it kind of plants Ezra back on the ground for a moment. Like, what if she's right? Because if I pull... Then we're dead. Like I was like, I kind of want to see like what if moment. Like, would he just vanish?
That's the end of the series. Hey, folks, sorry to tell you, but we're actually ending this a week early.
And then Ahsoka kind of continues to explain. Like that was Kanan's moment. Like it's
a great sacrifice for you.
Yeah, and everything. And honestly, seeing his sacrifice from that perspective was just as hard as actually watching the episode last week. It was just like,
but we also get some. I guess I will call it a shout out to the prequels there, because this is Ezra's Anakin moment. He has the power to save someone he loves. He's willing to do everything he can for it, but he makes the right decision. The better decision to let go and to allow Kanan to have that sacrifice. And to me, like, I thought that was awesome. I mean, we talk about Star Wars being poetry, and to me, that really hit home. And that's where mentally I'm starting to go, okay, I don't know what this is exactly, but I'm enjoying what the storytelling is doing right now in this moment.
But then we get to another great moment.
Yeah, so this is a third portal that Ezra knocks on. It's kind of like the neighborhood. He's just knocking on doors asking for Girl Scout cookies.
Hey, yo.
He goes to this third portal, and it's the Emperor. And he's standing over this basin, what I would say is like blue magic. It's not blue lightning.
We're going to say Sith magic.
Okay,
we'll call it Sith magic.
We'll say Sith magic.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Clone Wars. The
unfinished,
Yeah, the forgotten episodes, or the lost episodes, I think is what they're called. It is lost episodes. And it's those last couple where he and Dooku are standing over this basin. I think it's the same basin. And he's calling out to Ezra. And he sees Ezra and Ahsoka, and you hear the Emperor Ian McDiarmid say Ahsoka, and I think that's awesome.
It's such an, it's just like Ahsoka Chano, you know, like it's just like
mind blowing. And so he goes ahead, and you know, you see it play out. He sends out the Sith magic and chases down Ezra and Ahsoka. They all, you know, they have to split off into different directions, and there's various efforts for one to try and save the other. There, it eventually puts Ahsoka back on Malachor. But the thing that kind of threw me was, at one point you see the Emperor's hand reach through the portal.
Yeah, that was the thing. Is like, I think he had somehow figured out a way, like, to, like, he was forcing his way, like, into that realm, you know, and everything. And again, scary. Gives you a little bit of idea of how powerful Palpatine is.
Do you think that this was a trap for Ezra? Do you think there's a chance that the Emperor knew all along how to get into this space? Because he clearly did.
I didn't think about that. That's a really interesting point.
Because he is technically at this point still looking for a Padawan stronger than Vader.
At the same time, though, I mean, it doesn't seem like, would he really want? Well,
what he really
he's conniving and maniacal, so it's just kind of like,
it fits the MO, right? Because in the Vader comics that we always talk about on the show, what has he done twice in the first 11 issues? He's tried to kill off Vader or test his strength,
manipulate and everything.
Right. It's just something to speculate.
I mean,
on.
The Ahsoka factor there too. I mean, was that like just like an accident kind of thing, like of trying to do this? But yeah, it's definitely like, again, it's great to hear, you know, the original Emperor and everything again, and it's just every time it's just.
I guess the two questions that I have after this whole thing, because unlike the story, unlike the actual episode, we are ignoring what the other rebels are doing, and we're just focusing on Ezra.
Yeah.
But, you know, the two questions here is, what happens next with Ahsoka? Because she ends up on Malachor. May the Force be with you, Ezra. And then, does she have a way off that planet? Does she live? Does she just rot and die on that planet? Like, what is going to happen with her?
Well, yeah, that parting moment is, find me, come find me kind of thing. So, like, she goes back, you know, the temple, she's back on Malachor. The temple's just ruined and everything, but she's clearly alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's...
And then my question is, when she goes back through that portal, is that back at the time, like, is that after the temple crumbled after the explosion? Or is that like...
Yeah, what point in time?
Yeah, what point in time is that? Like, if it's the same one, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, did she go back a year in the past, or is it now present there? Like, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
I guess we'll see with the next, you know, episodes and everything, because it's an interesting point, because if she's back in time, then in theory she could save Kanan.
Yeah, how does that trigger?
You know, like, why would you not try to stop something like that from happening?
Because her argument with not saving Kanan is the fact that you don't realize the chain reaction that's going to have. That could take you away. Well, what's the chain reaction with Ahsoka escaping the clutches of Vader in that moment? I think that's like one of the best questions that are left to be unanswered. I'm really interested with how the time gets changed now with the Star Wars galaxy. Ezra just jumps out of the plane of existence, right, to dodge the Emperor, because he's getting chased down by that Sith magic, and it's really it just a really, I don't know, it just was really well done how they brought everyone together. How about you break down kind of like the last moments there of the episode? So
yeah, like Ezra escapes and everything, and he's escaping into a hail of, you know, blaster fire and everything. At this point, you know, Hera, Zeb, and Chopper have kind of got their escape plan going. They flipped a mobile home.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
You know, now, like, you know, they've hijacked a crane and everything. And they, you know, Ezra's like, he's coming through, like, kind of, we have to close this and everything. And you know, Sabine, you know, through talking with the minister, has kind of, you know, figured this out, and Ezra closes this portal and everything, and it ultimately causes, I guess you could say, this Jedi temple to collapse in on itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like sealing this realm or this artifact or whatever.
How he used the Force to open it, he now has to use the Force to close it with the Son. Because at one point they had the conversation, the daughter to open, the son to close, and that's what creates this.
Now the interesting thing is, you know, he opened it. It went through with, you know, really any physical issue, but when he closed it, he passes out. So I'm wondering because if you look back, with this, the son is connected with, the dark side. The daughter is the light side. So I kind of wonder if he had to get in touch with the darker side of the Force to close.
Maybe it was fear that helped him close it, though, because obviously he's just running away from the most powerful Sith being, right? So, no, I think that would, and what a great way to end it, though, because you end and it's just like almost looks like desert plain, like everything's gone.
Yeah, I mean, he comes to and like they tell him to go outside, hair's outside, and like it's just you see like the pattern of where like Ezra and Kanan first went to the temple and everything, but it's gone. Like these mountains, these hills, it's just completely flat. There's maybe like a little divot in the ground,
right?
And that pretty much closes out the episode.
Yeah, I mean, so we kind of walked from start to finish, and clearly we love this episode. Are there any specific cons? And let's list them, or pros, I should say. The 3 biggest pros that we take away from this episode moving forward. I'm going to say the enhancement of the Force lore with this plane of existence. I think that was incredible. I think the second pro is knowing that Ahsoka does live. And I think my third is just the fact that this sets up the series finale. Those are my 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was done really, really nice. Getting to kind of know the larger aspect of the Force and everything was definitely, it was different but good. And it's kind of tip of the hat to the story group and everything, because all the tie-ins from Rebels to the Clone Wars cartoon to the actual movies and everything, I think that really worked great for this episode. In particular, though. It kind of, a lot of people were questioning The Last Jedi, what happened in that. And I think that's why they're kind of maybe doing some of it. I think it was intentional in some ways, but at the same time, it's like, okay, it gives me a little bit more faith in what we might see in upcoming,
Yeah, I think a lot of this was finalized, though, before Last Jedi. But it
gives me the impression that they're working together is what I'm trying to say.
I think so. But what this shows me, and I think what the greater conversation is I think everything that we're seeing suggests that Dave Filoni gets Star Wars better than anyone else making Star Wars TV or movies right now. And I said that. I was one of many who cried that out after the Clone Wars, and I've said that multiple times over the course of Rebels. And I want to see him do a live-action movie because he's doing essentially the same kind of thing that Rian Johnson did, but it's an execution. And I know he's doing it with an animated series, and Rian Johnson did it with the movie, and they're 2 different things. But I just think, storytelling is good storytelling. And you know what? I used to say that Dave needed a live-action movie to prove himself. I'm done with that. If you're going to take risks on these other people, give Dave the movie. It's time. Let's make it happen.
I would give my left arm for that. I would give up my Mandalorian helmet. Like to Dave for him to actually do a movie.
I think a limb is more valuable or more sacrificial than
is
it?
In the case of me here,
your inability to make proper priorities. Do we have any cons with this episode, or do we stand by what we said earlier, which is if you can buy into their presentation of the Force and how it connects all these, how it connects time.
It's so weird because the stuff in this episode happens, and you start to, and then Dave is like, nope, and he snags you and pulls you back in, and he's just like, and he plants your feet firmly on the ground with it. Like you're hesitant at first, but then you're like, I'm sold.
I can't give this a con.
I'm really I had trouble doing that. I think. Between the 2 episodes, 12 out of 12, both each.
And I'm not trying to be like an over the top fanboy here, but this is the Star Wars storytelling that I've wanted for years.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to get that. Star Wars Rebel, the Star Wars show does that Rebel Recon after every episode. Check that out. There's some great insight that Dave and other show creators give there.
They get the behind-the-scenes stuff.
They get the behind-the-scenes stuff. Well, it comes with the territory, right?
Yeah.
It comes with their convenient location. But also, I was reading recently about how Dave Filoni has been inspired by like C.S. Lewis works, and that's really interesting. Not necessarily Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, but other novels along that line. And so it's just really interesting to see how an influence on Dave's childhood comes back, helps him with the show that's influencing so many childhoods right now. I don't know, just kind of cool.
You know, in his position, you'd have to be an avid reader of all genres of books and everything. Again, I mean, you look at his previous work, Clone Wars, numerous talks with George Lucas when he presented all the lore that people had come up for Mandalorians and everything. Like, what that told me, like, then was I read everything. You know, and even now, I think that holds true. I mean, it's great to know that he looks at other things and, you know, maybe kind of borrows some of those concepts and everything and sees how he can adapt it and maybe build upon it and put it into the Star Wars universe.
I'm totally with you, and I think a conversation for episode 30 coming out this week for Beyond the Blast Doors, I think we need to have the conversation of Kevin Kiner. I think that he needs to be the guy that takes over Star Wars music composing after John Williams decides that his time is done, because there are dozens of moments across Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, and in the last 2 episodes that I think musically he gets Star Wars, and he knows how to bring emotions, and he knows how to take Williams' score, that original score, and really make it his own. And we go into that right now. We're going to be here for another hour, but definitely look forward to that on episode 30 of Beyond the Blast Doors. That's going to do it for us here for this Rebels review. We have the series finale next Monday coming out March 5th on Disney XD. We'll watch that. Depending on our schedules, Jesse, you and I might want to do a live reaction to the grand finale. I'd be down to do it if time allows. We'll try and sort those details out.
We'll sort it out.
But I think it'd be really fun to do the series finale of Star Wars Rebels, 4 years in the making. That's going to do it for us. He's Jesse. I'm David. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We're also on Patreon if you want to check that out as well. Let us know what you think about these Star Wars Rebels episodes down below. Make sure you comment down below, and that's how we'll continue the Star Wars conversation. We'll see you soon. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You can watch other videos just like this one right now by checking out these videos on your screen. And by the way, thanks for checking out Beyond the Blast Doors.